We're talking with Richard Holt, a graduate of the Professional Writing and Editors program at RMIT University. Richard is now working as a professional writer. He collaborates through the publishers Spineless Wonders, and today he's going to be talking to us. We've sort of roughly called it What Industry Needs. We're going to capture some of Richard's thoughts about basically what graduates need to come out with in terms of internet skills and digital literacy. So Richard, over to you. What sort of things do you think graduates need to be thinking about as they're moving into your space?
What I've found, I guess, is that there are a range of online platforms that are extremely useful, but that writers in particular and creative individuals can use what they choose out of those and sort of package them up to make the end product sort of tool that they need in terms of, you know, is your practice going to need for instance, I guess a commercial front end? Then you look for those sorts of tools. Are you going to have a blog format of promoting yourself? Are you going to what extent are you going to want to use streamed media? You have to package it all up together to meet a need that's yours, not the sort of need that's created by the makers of those platforms. But I think in the end, they're still very powerful tools because they're so well understood by the community, I guess, and your potential readers, your potential clients, whatever. And they're also, because they're sort of global, they're incredibly well supported. And so they anticipate technology changes. So that's why, you know, I don't use all the sort of social media capacity. I don't use all the capacity on the web, but I do actively seek out the components that are available within those freely available platforms that will work for me.
So when you say platforms, can you, just to help us out a bit, what examples currently would you say are useful platforms?
Well, obviously YouTube, you know, I have been working with Spineless Wonders creating videos of flash fiction, and this has been a project that has worked really. The videos are actually created for public screens like the Federation Square screen and for public screenings, but you know, being able to have such an easily accessible archive of that material and to be able to make parts of it public and to be able to invite people through the process of developing the videos to look at works in production. So things like YouTube and those other sort of multimedia media sharing platforms are really useful. I've got sound pieces using SoundCloud, and I have a number of sites that use just freely available WordPress blog, I guess, engines. I really like the way that with these different components, they're almost designed now to bring together. So it's very easy to put inline videos and sound elements into other blog engines so that you can package up, for instance, some of the microfiction. You'll have the same page, you'll have some video, you'll have some sound, you obviously got text and graphic and all of those. So those are the main things I'm using at the moment.
And I mean, a layperson would say, but you're a professional writer, wouldn't you hire a professional web publisher to help with those spaces or to get you into those spaces? What would you say to that?
Look, as a professional writer, I'm looking for the vehicles. I'm looking for the vehicles that most people access. So in terms of the audience that is looking at those platforms for content, they're actually a logical choice. And as I said, also, those platforms reinvent themselves constantly ahead of the technology that's coming. So, for instance, and we're conducting this interview on a mobile phone. It could be on an 8-inch tablet. It could be on a massive desktop. That really matters. That sort of capacity for content to morph depending on the chosen device of the end user. So I think the days of the content maker almost demanding a particular platform for their end user, if they're not over, they're fast, becoming obsolete.
So you're arguing then that the skills needed to not only be aware of these platforms and their technologies coming, but to also get deep under them and work out how to use them to the best effect. You're arguing that needs to be a skill set that an emerging professional in the writing space needs to be across.
Oh, look, you can still function as a writer in other ways, but I would say that to really have control over your practice, that's something that it gives you. These things they're not difficult to learn. It gives you the flexibility with your practice, and I think that's what's actually essential in a changing marketplace, a changing environment. And it's about what in writers, in the instance of writers, readers are the audience, and it's what readers want, and writers need to be looking at publishing in different ways, and these are all publishing mediums. That's the point.
How do you keep across it all? I mean, there's the aspect of getting your work out into an audience, and that's obviously on YouTube. But then there's also how do you get your inspiration from YouTube's, or do you find solutions to problems from that same channel? Is it a bit of a two-way street in here?
Oh, look, I think it can be. My personal, I'm not a huge social media user, for instance, and so I think that's where I make myself aware of the things that can be most advantage to me, but I guess what I'm constantly doing, rather than looking at content, because I'm a content provider as a professional writer, is looking at functionality. So I'm constantly having a look at what new functionality exists in these various web-based platforms.
Yeah, okay. And you're just doing that by experimentation? Do you follow particular channels? It just comes by your way as you plug into these things, as it does for me.
Well, yeah, it's a bit ad hoc. I mean, essentially, and this is what I think tablets have changed things, and the proliferation of apps, for instance, has changed people's thinking on this. Basically, these days, I'm like a lot of people. I have a need for a particular technological outcome, and I will just go and search something very specific. How do I create, for instance, a commercial front end for a small, it could be a micro enterprise, and there'll be somebody who's thought about it, and it might be through a new platform that I'm not familiar with. And I think that's the way a lot of people operate, and then plug things together to finish with exactly what they need. So you're sort of crafting and customizing the technology and putting together the pieces you want for your needs. That's what I do.
Sure. The Professional Writers and Editors program is investing in these platforms in terms of designing curriculum that interfaces with them, and one of those platforms is LinkedIn. What do you have much use with LinkedIn? Are you using it much? Does it have much use to your industry, so to speak?
Oh, look, I think potentially, yeah. I don't, some of these things you engage with at the points where you need them. So from a professional networking, as a professional networking tool, I can see its value. I'm not using it at the moment in that way because I'm sort of at capacity, if you know what I mean. I'm not looking for new things to do.
Yeah.
If I was, and there'll be times when I will be, then that's where I'd look.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Is there any other channel that professional writers are using, a bit like the Etsy of the craft world? Is there one we should be watching out for, or is LinkedIn mainly it at the moment, you think?
That's actually really interesting that you mention Etsy, because I actually think, even that there are opportunities there for writers to create sites to commission writing. More along the sort of market model, like it's. I mean, I use the Facebook pages of the RMIT alumni from the course. And, my use, I'm not a big Facebook user, but I'm involved in 2 writing groups. They both come out of the course and they both use that as a platform for communication. Once again, it's that specific use rather than a general use. I haven't got time to spend, the way some Facebook users have on Facebook, but I still use what's worthwhile to me, and that's the sort of thing I think writers and editors in the course. Of my experience was that they're coming through very comfortable with using those sorts of tools. Maybe not, maybe there's ways they haven't thought of for you for packaging up some of those tools.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering too. Some sort of like a professional writer who specializes in writing a particular genre. I don't know, how do you write comedy in Twitter, for example, and things like that?
Yeah. And it could be, some of it's about creating networks with other writers. It's about creating network readers, and it's, there are, and it's also the using these things as creative platforms as well.
In their own right.
The other element they open up is interactive. So I guess more real-time writing experiences. So there are many ways in which that sort of media changes the capacity for people to use the same old writing and editing skills in different ways.
And what you're saying, or what I'm hearing out of it too, important for RMIT to consider RMIT as the whole organisation. It's important that that experience is in that space, not a boutique alternative space to it, but students are actually engaged in that space, experiencing that as it is, and not some other alternative.
For instance, I couldn't see the value of thinking. Well, I can see value, but I wouldn't assume in designing a course that you would just have a subject in this stuff. It's more about immersion, because that's the real world experience, is that you immerse in the technology of the day in order to use it to your advantage.
Richard Holt, thank you very much for your time. I'll put this recording on our site, annotate the key points, and send you the link. Thank you for giving us that little grab.
My pleasure.
I'll just stop the recording.